The second college football playoff rankings and bracket are out. I'm here with Stan Becton and Wayne Staats of NCAA Digital to break it all down. What are your guys' initial thoughts and what stood out? Let's start with you, Wayne.
Yeah, so mine is Miami. So they moved up three spots. And I wonder if that's a little bit more credit for being Notre Dame last week, from last week, even though it wasn't early in the season. But I kind of wonder if that's also from now that South Florida is ranked at 24 and Miami beat them pretty bad, if that's another way for them to argue moving up three spots. But by doing that, Miami is the highest ranked ACC team. So technically they're considered the ACC champion in this, even though if the for whatever reason, if it happened today, they would not even play for the championship because they have two conference losses. So there's a funny situation where Miami could be bumped from the AC champion as the AC championship plays out, which is kind of a funny situation to be in. But that's going to show how much still has to change and how many games we have to go still.
Yeah, I agree with you on that Miami point, especially because like last week they didn't view Miami better than Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech just had a bye. So how do you like move down because you didn't play? It doesn't really make sense, especially because it's like you beat Syracuse of all teams, and Syracuse isn't that big of a team. But another thing that stood out to me was Texas Tech moving up in front of Ole Miss. I didn't really think that was going to be the case because you did lose to Arizona State. But the committee chair did say last week that, you know, Texas Tech was without their quarterback and they evaluated that way. So maybe they don't really think that's a big loss, even though it's still a loss to Arizona State when an Ole Miss lost to a Georgia team they have ranked top five.
I do want to pivot to a question about Upset Watch. Who do you guys have on Upset Watch going into this weekend? I know that NC State travels to Miami. That could be huge, knowing where Miami stands right now and knowing what NC State did to Georgia Tech um, before the bye week. So we'd love to hear what y'all think.
I think that you have to watch out for a team like Alabama or Georgia just because they have to play a Texas or Oklahoma. I don't know if you would consider that an upset or not, but I mean, they are top five and the other ones are like top 10 ish. So, like, is that an upset? I'm not really entirely sure, but I feel like those ones could shake up the rankings a lot.
So for mine is just as a fun one. I'm thinking South Florida at Navy, only because it'd be fun to see if Navy beats South Florida, what Navy would do for their next fifth highest ranked conference champion, just as an experiment to see if what that would be. Could that be Navy? Could that be North Texas, JMU? It's fun just because so many games to play. Want to have some fun with it. Let's see some upsets and have some fun teams as the fifth highest ranked conference champion.
Yeah, maybe we can get a Jacksonville State in there for one of our peers there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep knocking on the ACC, but I do want to know, who do you think is the best ACC team? Is there a team that could win the national championship coming from the ACC? Is it possible?
No.
I think Miami could win. I think they have the talent to win. They're inconsistent and they have Carson Beck at quarterback. So, I mean, will they win? Probably not. But I mean, they're the one who could win. I think we got to watch out for Pitt because if Pitt does go on a run here late, then maybe they could. Like if they beat Notre Dame, I think they play Georgia Tech and Miami, then there would definitely probably be a playoff team regardless of the ACC championship, I would think, just because those are like three top 15 wins to close the season. But if they don't, then like I would still probably say like Miami. I don't. It's rough. I mean, Haynes King can do magic, so it's rough. It's rough out there.
Yeah, I would go Georgia Tech only because if we're projecting teams winning out, I think as you saw last year, being home in the first round is really important. And again, we're not saying this is going to happen, but if Georgia Tech does win out, that means they would beat Georgia. And you would think then also if they win the AC championship, they should maybe get a home game or maybe even get a bye. And I think that's the most important thing of winning the championship. Again, 1 year of sample size of a 12-team playoff, but we saw how important it was to have a home game in the first round and not go on the road. So the AC champion, whoever that ends up being, hopefully if they win out or someone wins out, they'll get ranked high enough to get a home game, because I think that would matter a lot.
Yeah, especially if Georgia Tech ends up playing a Pitt team that somehow beats Notre Dame, then that's two good ranked wins for them. I think they probably would get a bye if they beat, a ranked Pitt, a ranked Georgia, and wins the ACC. Well, not get a bye, but a home game for sure.
So, looking at the playoff picture now, who holds their own destiny?
I would say Oregon does because I don't think Oregon will make the Big Ten championship, but they still have to play USC and Washington, so they still have to win two tough games. But if they win both of those, they'll be in. Also, Ole Miss because Ole Miss doesn't play anybody either, so it's really like, do you play a ranked team? No, okay, you're already in the top 10. Just don't lose to an unranked team, and you'll probably make it. But as we saw with a team like Ole Miss last year, and I think they play Florida this week, that was a game that Jackson Dart cried on the sideline after throwing three interceptions. So who knows what's going to happen when Ole Miss plays Florida this week?
I guess if I think about this question, I could probably give a different answer the next minute. But just because they're on my mind because they moved up 2 spots this week in the top 10 is Texas Tech. They're behind a few teams that are in the same conference. So if they win out, that's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to argue that a one-loss Big 12 champion should not get a top 4 seed in the bye. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Like, what if Ohio State and Indiana are undefeated, they meet and it's a close game, or the ACC champions, the championship's a close game as well. But I think we saw moving up 2 spots when you're already ranked 8th is pretty impressive. Now, some of that's because they beat the team that was ranked ahead of them once, but that means that they really respect Texas Tech, because the more you move up, the harder it is to move up in the rankings. But clearly they respect Texas Tech. And that loss they had, you could excuse away due to injury, but they looked really good.
Yeah, because if Alabama and Georgia both lose this week, now Texas Tech is number 4, and then Ohio State and Indiana, one of those teams will have to lose at least. So, like, the path is there for them to be a top 3, top 2 team potentially. So, I
Or
agree.
how about this? Texas wins this weekend. Texas A&M wins. You could have Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Texas toward the top of the bracket.
And then they put Oklahoma right up there too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this kind of segues pretty well to this next question. Who is your best surprise champion? I mean, you just came up with a couple ideas of Texas being in, Texas A&M, Texas Tech being in the bracket. Like, who do you see as being a surprise champion that you favor?
A surprise that I believe in, no, but a surprise that could happen would be Duke winning the ACC with 4
Hmm.
losses, and they just lost to UConn last week because they had 1 loss. So, like, Duke is a team that could, like, really shake up everything. Like, if I'm James Madison or Kennesaw State or any of those other group of 5 teams, I would be rooting for Duke to win the ACC, because Duke winning the ACC might mean the ACC champion misses the playoff entirely, because Duke has to play a Georgia Tech still potentially. Well, they lost to Georgia Tech, but they had to play UVA, so that could be a team that could surprise the entire world. Who knows?
Yeah, that's one thing that it's always have to remind ourselves is everyone just, when we talk about the highest ranked conference champions, everyone's listing off, the SEC, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, but that's not tied to it's not tied to the conferences. So if there is a 4-loss ACC champion, there's no guarantee that they'd be one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. If there's a good, if there's a higher ranked team in the American, or JMU wins out. So it's kind of fun to think about. Again, it's I like the crazy. It'd be really cool to see an 8-4 Duke playing in the AC championship game with a chance to make their bracket at what would be 9-4. Yeah, sign me up. That'd be really fun.
And one last for you guys. Going back to the national championship question, who is your favorite lock for the title game?
Ooh.
I stumped you.
So I think if you're going by how the bracket is now, which I think is going to change, because I don't know if I really think Miami's going to end up as the ACC champion. But I would just say Ohio State. If that is the 8-9 matchup, for example, I would say Ohio State. Just because those other ones like Georgia against Alabama, Texas Tech versus A&M, Ole Miss, or Arch Manning in Texas against Indiana. I feel like a little, not that Oregon and Notre Dame aren't good, of course, but If I were Ohio State, as we saw last year in the Rose Bowl with Ohio State versus Oregon, Ohio State, when they turn it on, they can be pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, looking at that bracket, if I'm Ohio State, I would be nervous about Notre Dame just because that offense is clicking right now with CJ Carr, and that's like a rough game to play after what, like a month off
Mm-hmm.
if you get a bye. So that'll be interesting to see as well what happens with that month off and if any of those teams can overcome that compared to last year where you had a team win the championship that didn't have the longer off time. But I would say Ohio State or even a Texas A&M if they went out, because if Texas A&M wins out and beats Texas, they might be a team that you got to watch out for too.
Okay, well, that wraps it up for us. We'll catch you next week for the third reveal.